right. Well, that sucked.
We suck again.
I guess the question we'll be asking is, does this game undo everything else that came before it? No.
This game makes you
But
one of the
kind
worst.
of.
This game made you one of the worst summer league teams.
Not really, but kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say it like that.
I want to say no, but I might say yes. It was pretty bad. We're gonna welcome in Jimmy and Josue, who were not with us last time.
I was in the chat though.
He was there.
Yeah, I saw that, Jimmy.
Jimmy's in the chat, and we have Bobby and Sherrod. I think is going to be joining us from Summer League. He stayed the duration.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
He must be a corpse by now.
Poor Sherrod.
He's loving it, man. He's built for this. Well, his forehead's not.
I saw him after about 10 minutes outside one day, and I was like, what's going on?
His forehead might not be built for it.
There's a lot of perspiration.
So
Yeah.
for those of you who stayed up and watched this whole debacle, it was pretty gross. Again, it's Summer League. We can't overreact to Summer League good and not mention some of the stuff that happened tonight, which, wasn't great. And among those things was, Peyton Pritchard being taken to homeschool. He was
backpack and everything.
Backpack went
big time.
Hold right back.
They packed his lunch, PB and J.
Yeah,
loop around the house, and he sat down at the kitchen table for history class.
Neesmith looked again. It was bad. Neesmith. I mean, his shot was just off. He went back to just jacking contested threes. He wasn't finding his shot. He wasn't getting to the lane. He wasn't getting to his spots.
He was a turnover mess too.
And turnover, just an absolute disaster. Maybe the worst. The stats in this game were, hideous. 28 turnovers in a 40-minute Summer League game. Oh, my freaking God. Half the Kings' points almost were off of turnovers. It was an ugly game, but, the turnovers, that's quintessential Vegas League. The things that we'll talk about in this game were the performances of the guys we've been praising along the way, and that's Pritchard and Neesmith, and we'll get to Romeo later because
much later.
I don't know, John.
You can't make it up.
John might have an announcement later.
I will
about Romeo.
I gotta calm down.
It's a good team. It's a good team.
We'll see. I might have some things to say, but. So let me preface it by this. I put an article in our chat earlier today. It was an article Sam Vecini wrote over The Athletic, and just talking about he did his all. He was basically saying these are players who are too good for Summer League, and atop that list was Peyton Pritchard, and he was talking about his poise, his assist to turnover ratio, the way he was shooting, the way he was creating, and just looked like he didn't belong here. And Neesmith was an honorable mention. He was like, not in the starting five, but right there, and basically saying, but the point behind it was how important it is for second-year players to dominate in Vegas. Rookies, you can understand being up and down, but the second-year players that tend to dominate are ones who go on to, and that translates into what they do, and he had some empirical evidence to show it. And the ones who suck, or the ones who still struggle and the game is still fast for them, tend to kind of struggle and continue to struggle, and many of them end up not really ever being able to pull it together. So it is important. We talked about it at the beginning. Dominate, and
game one, yeah,
and they didn't. Pritchard did, Neesmith did not. Then Neesmith had a nice string of games. Then they both sucked again tonight. And again, it's just one game, but it was frustrating to see against a Kings team that's not like loaded. The Celtics, half of their roster, these guys have NBA contracts. They should be
Celtics were 7-point favorites.
And they should be stomping people, but Pritchard got absolutely worked tonight, and Neesmith looked horrible. And so it's hard to not talk about it. Sure, it's just one game, but you would have liked to see them ride that momentum through into this game and into the championship and keep the good vibes going. And instead, it's a step back. So we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's a step back, especially because you didn't see them make the adjustments. You saw the defensive scheming from Sacramento. They made their adjustments, and it was Pritchard, right? Whether it was, getting him into the double team or just adding constant pressure on him, it clearly affected the Celtics' offense, and then no one else was able to really step up in there. Carson Edwards had a couple of streaks going throughout that first quarter. I know John had seen about enough by the second quarter. He was done with Carson. But I thought that some of those shots, you couldn't rely on those. Even those mid-range, when he comes to a complete stop, and you listen to these commentators like, oh yeah, he can really get going on offense. I'm like, yeah, but those aren't the shots that you should rely on, because if that's the case, they're not going to fall every single time. And I think that was the concern for me. It was their approach. After such a successful run up until this point, how do you not make those kind of adjustments? Yeah, okay, sure, you haven't seen that sort of defensive pressure before, but these guys completely collapse. I mean, I think that's a bit of a concern when you look at guys, in particular, Neesmith and Pritchard. I mean, Pritchard, if you ask me, the whole summer tour, all this extra playing, it didn't do him any favors for this one. Clearly he was outworked. He had to really have his stamina together to keep
at
up.
At least the travel, right? Yeah.
And yeah, plus you add the travel. I mean, this is a congested schedule when you look at it all together. And for him to be traveling back and forth like that, so you could say that for his case. But for Neesmith, I don't know, fellas. How are you guys calling this?
Well,
I mean,
on the Pritchard thing, I'm going to actually say I'm going to commend Pritchard for coming back, because I think we pressured him into coming back. He probably should have just stayed away.
Himself. No, I think he pressured himself.
I think he heard the noise, and it was the championship, and he wanted to come play, and he wanted to be part of it, and he did. I don't think he needed to. That being said, I still don't think it wasn't awesome that he left, and Jimmy has his take there too. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Bobby. But I wonder, the Neesmith thing, I feel kind of Celtics Nation willed him back for this game, and it didn't go well.
Pritchard, yeah, he did look exhausted with the defensive pressure he was getting at the second quarter, and then everything was live ball with him, which is really bad. And that's why I do think this erases some of what we saw, especially from him here, because his goal, his emphasis coming into this was controlling the ball, the pace, and playmaking. And he failed pretty badly in all three facets here in that sense. So it wasn't great. I thought he started chucking once it got a little tough out there for him. Yeah. He airballed a few. That was just not a great response to the pressure he was facing there. And again, this took on extra stakes because of the championship, and I'm sure they were feeling that too to some degree, because you did start to see Pritchard hyping up the plane ride back in, and then Neesmith really wanting this one in the championship sense. The Kings, by comparison, were just playing more this was just another summer league game, and they won this the way they have all their other summer league games. So
address this comment here. Is it burnt out, or did he meet an NBA level defender and he just couldn't get around him? Because I think it's I personally think it's more the latter.
This is a really good defender. This might be the best defender in the draft in Davion Mitchell. I mean, this guy's a monster. This guy's like Marcus Smart coming out.
So, but he can shoot.
What made it tougher for Pritchard was that he had to put forth the same energy on the opposite end, and he worked him. Davion worked him for sure.
So it's a few things. I think it's both of those things. I mean, I think that him. First of all, if you want to go back to when they announced that he was leaving the team, I thought that was weird. I think I might be in the minority. I've never seen something like that before. When they said he had a something already planned prior and an excused absence, I just assumed his twin sister was getting married and he was in the wedding and all this stuff. I didn't know that he was going to play a pro-am against.
If there was something going on to the Celtics player's sister, Bobby would have known about it, Jimmy. So.
That's true. That's true. I should have just gone straight to Bobby. But shame on me for not going straight to Bobby for that one. But I was wrong.
What's going on, man?
It was
actually. We don't even know if he has a sister.
Well, you would know. And in my opinion, you're in the NBA. This is your team. And I don't know all the details about this pro-am. Was it for charity? Did they raise a bunch of money? If they did, great. But I just thought it was kind of weird that he would leave his NBA team playing as well as he's been playing, considered maybe the best player in the summer league, to go play against a bunch of 9-to-5ers and then puff your chest out because you dropped 90 points against a carpenter and a plumber and all these former high school basketball players. No offense to anybody who's in that game.
I'd say the ones that almost made it, or could have made it.
Okay, but
injury derailed them.
If they were really good, they'd probably be on one of these summer league teams that Pritchard was at least carving up in that time. So, fun that he went and scored all those points. But John says I don't think he needed to come back. He damn well did need to come back if his team ended up in the freaking summer.
I'm saying once he left, it was over. The deed was done.
Well, he probably didn't listen. Once he left, they probably didn't think they were going to be in a championship game, and that was going to be the end of it. But once your team's in the championship game, you better get your ass back on that plane. And you know what? If you're gonna suck out there because of it, then suck out there because of it. That was the choice that you made to leave the team to begin with. So I think he had maybe a little humble pie tonight. With NBA caliber defender coming in, and he's not able to put up 50 shots and do whatever the hell he wants.
They game planned him. They were blitzing him. They were doubling him.
That was interesting. Yeah,
they went at him for real, and he had pressure everywhere. So they were it was not a typical Vegas game where they actually game planned for what the Celtics were going to do, and they were putting a lot of pressure on Pritchard to not let him kind of get moving and get going to create there. Not just Mitchell. Yeah,
I'm obviously exaggerating the competition in this pro-am. I know that they weren't a bunch of just regular people. I know
they're better than you and me, Jimmy. They're
exactly, but they're not summer league, not even summer league level players. So it's just weird. You're leaving your NBA team. You're leaving your teammates. We were talking about Pritchard as kind of taking on this leadership role, and I'm not saying he's not, but it was just to me a little strange timing, and I just and maybe it came back to bite them. Maybe it did.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Jimmy. I think it's a little strange. And the Sacramento Kings, you're thinking the same thing, right? You're thinking, oh, okay, Pritchard's feeling himself a bit. He went off. He's announcing on Twitter, hey, guys, coming back for the chip. Tuesday, Summer League chip.
Right. Here I am.
Fresh off the 90-plus game, fresh off the 50-plus point game.
It was a big announcement.
Look out. If you're the Kings, I'm in the locker room or wherever we're hanging out. You see this guy right now? He's
what's
really
going on?
Feeling himself. He's really coming here to take the chip. Let's show him what time it is. That's exactly what the Kings did.
Well, we have to show some respect for Mitchell because he really
I love that guy.
This isn't just all right. He went up against standard NBA defender. We're gonna see very quickly this year that this guy is gonna come in and be one of the best defensive guards in the league right away. So it wasn't. I don't want to say an extraordinary challenge, but this wasn't just your run-of-the-mill summer league defender coming out here and just putting a little more pressure on him. This guy was giving everybody trouble across the summer league. The Kings went 5-0 for a reason here. So, you do. So it's a little bit of both, right? He came here to raise his game as a ball handler and as a distributor. So you don't want to see it be an absolute disaster if you go against a tough matchup here like it was. But you also do understand a little bit the level of competition he was going up against here in his individual matchup. So I think Pritchard made progress here, and I don't think it takes away from all the progress we've seen of him, because I do think there'll be certain matchups.
I'm not saying it does.
There'll be certain matchups in a regular season schedule where I think he'll thrive, but it does remind us that this is the kind of stuff he had trouble with last year. The point guard duties, the pick and roll, those kind of things. And even when he was thriving earlier in the week, I still said he wasn't a maestro in the pick and roll. He was shooting and scoring. He was doing the things we saw him do last year.
He needs to hit 30 plus. I mean, we were commending his range. We weren't commending him blowing by guys and getting to the hoop and all this stuff. We were commending his hitting 30 footers. So
he didn't do anything in summer league that would inspire trust in him making a spot start at point, which is really what he struggled to do last year.
No, he didn't.
Aaron Brad's trust in that sense.
And he's got a lot of shimmy and a lot of shake, but it doesn't always result in, like I said, he's not getting by NBA level defenders with that stuff. He's able to kind of, he's a confident ball handler, but he's not able to get where he wants to go all the time because of that. That being said, we did see him take it to the basket, a fair amount last year. So I still think he's, I said it in game one. I still thought he was a little slow to me and a little out of shape. I don't think he's played his way all the way into game shape yet. So, we'll see what he's like into the season. As far as the absence, we talked about it. We joked about it. My stance on it is, it's a strange ask. Jimmy and I are kind of aligned on this. Sure, it's not the end of the world. It's Vegas Summer League. You had a prior engagement. You wanted to do this thing.
And he played 4 games, just like Romeo. Or he played more than Romeo.
It's the kind of thing where you go to your boss and you're like, can I do this thing? And they're like, I guess. And you're like, cool. And you run out the door. But
I prefer you don't, but if you really want to, then go for it.
If it's something you feel that's important, it'd be great if you stayed. But if you feel it's important, yes, thanks, bye. And he ran,
but you give him that face like, this is weird. You know that, right?
Right.
Right. And he did it anyway. And they're like, whatever, and let it go.
Yeah, I'd like to know I'd like to really know how everybody feels about it. We never will, and they'll all say that it's fine. I'd like to know if I'm just if I'm really wrong in my assessment, or if his teammates and coaching staff was kind of like,
Probably
Wait,
depends on how you
Well,
feel
going
about the
to
summer
he's
league.
going to Portland and play.
Well, it depends if a
throw-in?
bunch of other guys had
Or even-
similar. Yeah.
Or even this, Jimmy, right? Like you're like, okay, all right, do your thing. You're not quite sure what it is, and then you go on Twitter one day and you see him. He dropped 50 plus. You're like, wait,
Right.
that's why you left.
It depends, and that's the thing. It's the lack of transparency and the fact that it was dropped late that was odd.
That's what makes it odd. especially
And
for
also,
us.
it's only an
Trying to
issue if
figure it
one, the team didn't really want him to go, and we don't know that, or two, if there's a bunch of
Right,
other
I don't
players
know
who had their own shit going on, who were like, I'm not going to ask if I can leave. That's ridiculous,
Well, that's what
right?
I'm saying.
most of
like
the
how many-
rosters just trying to make the league.
Yeah.
But how many
is
players in summer league are like, would they rather be doing something else? Probably a good amount of them, right? So I mean, I'm not the ones who are fighting for
the
a
guys who were
roster
in Pritchard's
spot.
position. Again, Pritchard was in a place where he could do this, so he
Well,
did it.
What I didn't love is
Again, like you're acting like Pritchard's LeBron James. Like he's in a
Yeah, that's
position
what I'm
where he
saying.
can do this. What has
I feel
Pritchard
like-
earned? What has Pritchard earned? One thing that he's earned.
Listen, I was in-
Summer League star.
I can't help but think.
Want to retire off that?
I
Yeah,
saw
but
guys in the hallway just hanging out, having a good time. And again, they were there, they were with their team, so it is different. But you play a couple games, then you just hang out, sit back in your cool clothes and relax. That's what guys do out there, especially the guys with.
All right, fine. It
I'm
is
not-
what it is. I'm not
yeah, I
prepared to
just
make
feel
it a big stink about it. I just thought it was a little weird. That's all.
Yeah, I'm with you with that, Jimmy, because I feel like he's sort of he was into his own hype. He's reading those lines that some articles are saying, oh, these are guys that shouldn't be here technically, but they're here anyways. And Pritchard was one of those names that was mentioned. I mean, maybe he bought into that a bit.
And again,
Maybe he bought
the
into
context, the context that he was killing is important too, because he reached a point where he probably didn't have a
But
ton
Bobby,
to
that's
gain.
what you're supposed to do, man. You're supposed
Yeah,
to kill
so
it
he went out there and did-
after your rookie season. That doesn't mean you don't belong there,
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I would say
Sometimes it does. I mean, Grant didn't go.
well, okay, but that has nothing
that's
to
a
do
good
with
point. Yeah.
Pritchard went and he was tearing it up. Like
Well,
if I'm Pritchard, I'd rather be playing on ESPN and like tearing that up.
I mean, Halliburton didn't play, and he's a year 2 player, right? Is he hurt?
No, he just didn't need it.
Just didn't need it. So I don't care. Like I said, if to me it would have mattered less if they just said we're shutting Pritchard and Nesmith down. It was just odd how it came about. I think all of those things, but the lateness of it, like the prior commitment without saying what it was, and that it was dropped at the very last minute, made it seem like it was kind of like, hey guys, is it cool if I duck out? And they're like, sure.
He asked us 3 months ago. We forgot.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing was like the Romeo.
It was in the inbox.
The Romeo night off
you
also
wanna
was
do
dropped.
that?
Yeah, the Romeo night off was also dropped very late. And then this news, Romeo's wrist also dropped very, right before. We've had two off days here. And you find out.
Did Yam play tonight?
No, Yam's
He
like
didn't.
going to Serbia and never
Yeah.
coming back.
Yeah. Hope you got a good look at him.
But
In other words, no, he didn't play.
No, but the Romeo thing is frustrating. Like one, again, dropped minutes before the game. You wonder how serious it was. Maybe it was close to playing, and they're just like, screw it. But this is what bugs me with this story is it's his right wrist, and anybody who remembers that's the right wrist that he had surgery on, cost him to leave the bubble and to miss the whole first few months of last season, and basically destroyed his season because then he got COVID, then he came back, then it was basically a completely lost year again. And so now he's got a sore right wrist. Jimmy thinks it might be on that dunk that he had earlier, right?
The baseline one? Yeah.
Pretty big dunk.
But immediately
Bring it back.
after the report drops, a whole bunch of people all report at once that it's not related to the wrist injury. Okay, so fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Not the prior injury and the surgery. Okay, and I guess we believe that. I don't know. Clearly, somebody wanted to get that information out there and told a bunch of people it's not the surgery. Don't worry about it. Okay,
It's still the same. It's still the same area.
it's the same wrist. Okay, we've seen this before. It's like I said.
Right.
I joked about it. Like the Kemba Walker. They tried so freaking hard to dance around it last year when he was experiencing knee stuff, and they're like, it's not really the same issue as the knee. It's just around it, and it's bugging him a little. No, bullshit. It was the knee. It was the same knee.
Right.
And this is a wrist that he had surgery on, and now he sprained it. And again, the mechanism for spraining it's probably different than whatever he did to hurt it, but you don't want you just don't want any more setbacks for this guy. And who knows the significance of this one? But I'm beyond frustrated. I don't even know what to do next with this guy. I really don't know what to do.
Well, are you sitting on the fence right now? Are you gonna commit one way?
I wouldn't go all the way
guy,
in,
or
yeah.
are you cutting ties? What's
The reality so here's the reality. I actually don't like Romeo, and I never really have. But I
my
want.
God.
Him, aren't you, John?
That's some M. Night
Oh.
Shyamalan twist right
You're
there.
blaming Romeo.
That's M. Night right there.
Romeo.
But I want Romeo to be good because I want them to hit on their lottery picks. And it would be better if he was good than if not. So I wanted to give him every opportunity to show something. And every single time they do, he just fails all the time. And it's really hard to see a world in which he's not this guy. I don't know how you see it. He comes to Summer League with a full offseason and he's meh. He skips a game for whatever reason.
This is Romeo.
I don't understand what it is.
Fan.
He doesn't go out there and he doesn't dominate ever, even for stretches. He has one or two highlight dunks, and then bang, here we go. Another little injury here. Like, I just don't know how much longer, what we're holding out for at this point.
No, I never knew what we were holding out for. Even the 4 we talk about.
Don't say we. Don't
I
say
mean,
we.
I mean, yeah, I just don't see a high level in terms of what we look at.
I've never seen it. I just wanted to see if it's possible. Like, because last year I didn't want to see, I would have rather seen Romeo fumble around than see Semi out there, because Romeo theoretically has a higher ceiling. It's not that he's a better player at that moment in time, but see what you have, and if you have nothing, move on. That's always what I wanted to do.
It depends what your expectations are going to be at this point, because he could end up being a starter, maybe, with his defensive pedigree and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Portland Pro-Am.
I think
maybe. I think Sherrod's about to join us. If
I want to say this.
I think his offensive potential is extremely limited, and I think we've seen enough to realize that. I think there isn't great separation. He's played 50 games and had 3 points or less in 35 of them. I counted out today. Like this, and the shot's okay. Like, he could be an average 3-point shooter, but if he's only taking 2 to 4 of them, it's not going to end up being a lot of offense for you.
Yeah. Sherrod, we've moved on from the game and we're on to Romeo. And I'll get back to
it. Came in at a good time.
We just started on Romeo. We'll get back to the game because you were there. What a S show that was. Sherrod's been in Vegas this whole time. You look surprisingly dry, my friend. Is it a cool one out there?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
He's like, it's a nice 90.
95.
It's cool 95.
You do get used to it fast.
I hate putting you on the spot because I don't know if you know any more than what's been reported. But are we to believe? I hate these reports where it's like, he hurt his wrist, but it's not the surgery. Take me at my word for it. I don't know. Sure, fine, maybe. Do we think it's a minor injury, or is there any concern here? Because again, this was an injury. This was a wrist that he had surgery on that he missed significant time with.
I think when it comes to Romeo, every injury is a serious injury because we've seen there's a track record. There's a long ass list of receipts showing his injury riddled career that's relatively short here in Boston.
It's uncanny.
Am I worried that he's not going to be able to play at all next season? No, but am I concerned that he'll miss some time at the start of training camp or regular season? Absolutely. And even if he's, let's say, it's not significant enough to where he can't practice, it's still to some extent going to minimize or limit what he can do in some respect. And whether that's going to manifest itself in less playing time, we don't know yet. But bottom line is, this is par for the course with Romeo, unfortunately.
Yeah. You know what, Sherrod, too? Also, he's in danger here, right? I mean, the show goes on. There's guys that are eager to take his spot, talented enough to take his spot. And if we're talking about Romeo realistically trying to lock down a spot in this rotation moving forward, I mean, sure, it's really early, but you can easily see after the last 2 years that he could easily fall behind in this one, especially after.
Well, other guys are getting better. I mean, you look around, you look at
and you got a couple of free agents now in front of him, So
right,
we'll
right. And the pecking order is stacking up against him. And if you're not showing your ability to continue to elevate your game and earn minutes, no one's going to wait for you to get healthy. I mean, and to me, that's the sad part, because when Romeo has played, he's looked pretty good. But we're only getting snapshots. We're only getting glimpses of that. He hasn't been able to put it together for an extended period of time because he hasn't been healthy enough to do it. And again, as I said earlier, this is just par for the course for him.
It is.
Remember,
but
we had a big conversation. We said a great goal this year would be 72, 82 games, just as a floor.
That's not going to happen.
Listen.
Great goal would be 82 games. You could say that.
No, but never mind.
82 games for his career would be a great goal at this point.
Yeah.
I think if you're putting the over-under at 72 games for him, I think 95% of people will take the under.
Yeah.
I'm taking the under.
For sure.
I mean,
think of it like this, though. Think of it like this. I mean, every year you get, 50-plus new players that come into the league, which kicks out another 50 players. I mean, where is this guy ranked? And he's got to be pretty far down the damn list at this point. I mean, if you're the Celtics, you got to be thinking, how long can we hang on to somebody who can't even get on the court?
He's dangerously close to becoming Romeo Langford's contract and not Romeo Langford,
for sure.
Which is just going to be, how do we get rid of this $5 million? And because I don't want it on the books anymore.
They got to decide his team option.
His team option is coming up soon, and you would have never thought you would punt on a lottery pick this quickly. But it
almost never happens in year two player. I mean, it's not going to happen.
They'll pick it up.
They'll pick it up.
That being said, the fact that we're even talking about it is, explains how bad it is right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he lost his self-proclaimed only fan. 2 shows ago, John Zannis said he was the only Romeo Langford fan. And then we come to find out the biggest twist of all, John was never actually a fan. And that's why we said, if John's your only fan, you're in big trouble. He'll turn on you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And it happened 2 shows later.
I can't anymore. I can't do it. I can't.
I got a couple shares of Romeo stock still left in the bank, and I'm just holding on.
Oh, dude.
Maybe
that's like an OTC stock.
Oh, wow.
They won't even let you buy. They won't even let you buy that stock anymore right now, dude. It's too volatile.
That hurt. I'm not letting my Romeo stock go just yet. I got a couple shares left.
Might as well roll with
Let me ask you, Rod. What about your?
They need to be.
How's that picture stock looking right now?
I still got that
certified.
I'm not giving that up.
Good.
I'm keeping my. But here's the thing about this game that jumped out to me: Sacramento has good length, athletic guys on the perimeter, and let's be honest. When you hear about a dude drop 92 in a Pro-Am league, you coming to lock his ass up first chance you get. You're coming in with a different mindset, a different edge, I gotta put this kid in check because he's not dropping 92 on me.
Right.
And it was clear from the jump that Sacramento played with a different edge.
That is so true.
Whenever he had the ball. And I can't be mad at him about that because if it were me, I'd be the same way. I absolutely would have been the same way. So I'm not really rattled one way or the other about him not having a good game.
They started sending in the doubles and the traps.
They were doubling him. They were blitzing him.
If you didn't know better, you would think that was like Jason Tatum out there running a point, or Kevin Durant, or just like an established superstar. The way that they were just absolutely doubling him like that. I mean, there wasn't even any hesitation. And Pritchard, I think it's fair to say didn't see that coming. And I don't think he handled it as well as he would have liked. Now, Coach Mazzulla said after the game that, that's on him. He's got to put him in better positions to be successful. And that's great for your coach falling on a score like that. But that has enough. To me, that was irrelevant. Pritchard was getting blitzed, and he didn't respond accordingly. If it would be one thing if they did it every now and then. They did it pretty damn consistently. And he never adjusted his game to that, in part because those guys are long, they're athletic, and you can't really do a whole lot other than give the ball up quicker. But here's the thing. He didn't do it. And so, to me, like I said, I'm still keeping my Pritchard stock, but this was not a good night for him at
Yeah,
all.
and you're right. No, it's under normal circumstances, he's never going to draw that much attention. So there's two things. In an NBA game, you're going to face these types of defenders all the time, but also you're never going to get that type of attention where you are the focal point and the other team is like, I'm not letting that guy beat me. That's obviously not going to happen with him playing second unit minutes in the second quarter of a regular season game. That's against the Knicks or whatever. That's just not going to. He's not going to run into those problems. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, what he was doing before when he was finding success is still transferable, which is good. But ultimately, the shortcomings he showed tonight, and again, we talked about at other points, there wasn't an immense level of growth in the playmaking and the pick and roll action of his game. That's still stuff he has a lot to work on. Even though he was thriving earlier in the week, it was off things we've seen him do before. It was kind of the same formula for him. So there's still another level he's going to have to reach at the point guard position.
Yeah, because I thought there were a number of occasions where he turned the ball over trying to execute a pick and roll play where he's trying to make a bounce pass when he should really just throw it over the top, or he's trying to.
But he had a tough time getting over the top on some of them.
Right. And so this was a game where just the things that he needed to work on and get better at were exposed. His pick and roll execution was really, really poor tonight, I thought.
I don't disagree there, and it's not bad. It's not bad to eat some humble pie from time to time.
Sherrod, we touched on this briefly. I just want your opinion on: did you or did you not think it was kind of weird that Pritchard left Summer League to go play in the Pro-Am?
No, it wasn't weird only because they obviously talked about this well in advance.
No, I know, but do you think it's a weird ask by him?
I think it is. Yeah, I do think it's a little weird.
Okay.
I mean, and here's how I kind of rationalize that. My job is to be an NBA player. My job is to get better in the offseason. I'm not sure dropping 92 in a Pro-Am league is going to, frankly, speed that process up. But I do know, working with my teammates in Vegas, working on my game, becoming a better pick and roll player. That, to me, I probably wouldn't have done it if I were him. But again, there are factors that he obviously weighed in that decision that we don't know about.
Right.
And frankly, I don't care about, because again, at the end of the day, summer league is just part of your process. It's part of you getting better. But I would have liked to have seen him here for the full run. And people are certainly going to draw inferences to the fact that he's playing great. He goes away. He drops 92. He comes back. He has his worst game.
Yeah.
In summer league.
Kind of like
it's hard for.
No, finish. Sorry.
No, yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's hard to not draw a correlation between those factors, which are just facts. But again, like I said, I'm still keeping my Pritchard stock. It's going to rise as we go through time. This is just one of the little valleys that we got to ride this out.
But that's the thing. It's the weirdness of the ask that Jimmy and I keep coming back to, which is you're a second-year dude who hasn't really done anything yet.
Right.
It's an awkward thing. It's an awkward thing to
That's the part that bothers me, because I feel like it's almost like the whole buying into the I'm too good to be here. 2 games is enough. 3 games is enough. It's like, well, wait a minute. You still want to be here regardless.
All right, so
I can't imagine a world in which I would do that, in a new job, and feel comfortable. Hey, I'm kind of low on the totem pole here, but can I do something that no one else is doing? Is that cool?
Right. Use my vacation day immediately.
I think the context,
Right.
Have I accrued any vacation days yet?
But I can't start for 2 months because I'm going to Europe, and then when I come back, I can start in November, but I've got a wedding in the second week of November, and then a planned vacation in December. But after that, I'm good.
I know a guy who did that, actually.
I've had people who've done that.
Well, again,
he's no longer working at that company.
This is what I keep coming back to, Sherrod.
And you're sitting there as a boss, and I'm like, I guess that's all right, but are you fucking serious? Anyway, go ahead.
This isn't unheard of even in this year. Maxey, checked out of that Celtics game on Saturday and went to do a camp. There's other guys doing this. And then if you look across the board here at the Summer League, what are the best players doing? They're in their seats. They got their chains, their shirts on, their whole get-up, and they're just chilling. You play a couple games, you do what you need to do, and most guys take a game or 2 off here. It's just that he left.
But here's the thing, though. You mentioned Maxey, who, frankly, has a clear and established role with his team. So whatever he did in Summer League is not going to affect that. The Celtics have made a number of moves. They have significantly upgraded their backcourt. There's going to be a different level of competition for playing time for Peyton Pritchard than there was this past season. So to me, that's why it struck me as a little bit odd, because it would be different if, let's say, the Celtics are running things back. They did, and his playing time was pretty much locked in, but it's not. It's far from it. And I just think every opportunity you get to impress this coaching staff, and keep in mind that, your head coach, who, again, you've not dealt with directly, is in the building. He's watching these games. And whether he's going to hold that against him, I don't think that'll happen. But you better believe that's something that, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it's something that's going to think about. Yeah, because and again, Peyton, and like I said, I think Peyton's going to be a really good player in this league. He's not going to be. I don't think he'll be great, but I think he's going to be really good. But this, to me, was one of those crossroad moments where you either, you do what you need to do, or you do what you want to do. And he did what he wanted to do.
That's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
I think the EA point's good.
I was like, I feel like maybe that's a young man's mentality. It's like, oh, they said it's okay. It's like, yeah, but you didn't think about it big picture wise, Like, how does that going to look? They just acquired, Dennis Schroeder. Like that, he plays your position. You know that, right? Like,
And look, we're talking about this now on a scale of 1 to 10. This is a 2.
We'll never bring it up again,
in terms of it mattering. It doesn't matter deeply.
Right.
It's just if given a chance to do it over, the right thing for him to do is probably not to ask out.
And the optics are important right now.
And the optics,
we're seeing with the tweets and the other things they're doing to try to change things a little bit here in Boston. Like, optics are being emphasized right now. It's pretty clear. So it does matter in that sense. But in terms of the tangible improvement and it mattering to where Pritchard's going, I think is probably a little overrated in this sense. Like him missing one Summer League game. Because he did improve here. He was better.
He was better. But again, one of the things that when you look at a point guard that is absolutely critical to their success is decision making. Mm-hmm. And yes, we can talk about it in the context of basketball, but let's be honest. Decision making goes beyond just what you do on the court. And this was one of those decision-making moments where he could have done what I think he should do, or he could do what he wants to do. And as we all know, the two are not always necessarily one and the same. He did what he wanted to do, and that's fine. But understand that there are consequences, good and bad, in every decision we make. Yeah. And I don't think it's just a coincidence that his absolute shittiest game in Summer League just so happened to be the one where he left, rejoined the team. And the defense was a little bit
could have been. I mean, they were playing some. So it was tricky the way it lined up because they played two really bad teams. They played two solid teams in Atlanta and Orlando. And I think they faced a team here that was evidently really good. And a matchup in Mitchell that was a really tough one for him. So I do think to some degree it's coincidental, but yeah, you're right. There's probably something that played into it in terms of
this was going to be a closer
because he was exhausted. Game. He was exhausted.
You know what, though? You play 4 games in 6 nights in the NBA, 5 games in 7, 8 nights. I don't want to hear exhausted.
Well, no, that's the only thing I'm saying, that with the travel and the other thing he did.
Well, he also, the equivalent of a home run derby in the middle of it.
He didn't have to do that.
He got put up 60 shots
to do that.
He did that to himself.
He made that choice. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This wasn't like, Commissioner Silver putting up the schedule and having them play 5 games. No, he literally made the decision to get his ass on a plane, go play the program, and come back. That was his decision. So any fatigue or anything lacking in his ability to perform, that's on him. That's one and like I said, we're getting after him now. But I keep telling you, I'm not selling my Pritchard stock. I'm keeping that shit.
Well, I'm
not happy with this.
Let's move off this. So Pritchard, fine. He's got some excuses, even though a lot of, you can argue whether or not some of what went on tonight was self-inflicted because of his choice to go play, a couple of pro-am games back home. Aaron Nesmith, no real reason for him to play as the way he did tonight, but this was closer to old Aaron Nesmith than
he was erratic.
Oh yeah,
this was bad versus we'd seen good Aaron Nesmith, which was confidently getting to his spot, a little in between game, going to the basket when the opportunity was there, and just being all in all just everything, slowing things down for him. And this was train wreck, bull in a china shop. Aaron Nesmith forcing shots, just looked off. After a decent start, he and the Celtics, a lot of that had to do with when the ball stopped moving, everybody was all out of sorts. And then Nesmith was just getting the ball and just trying to chuck threes. But, what we talked about Sherrod early was the importance of these guys dominating and playing well as they had in the first 4 games really, I think, bodes well for the type of season you can expect them to have. And then seeing Aaron take a big step back against this level of competition just reminds you that, how far off he is or how incomplete the project still is.
He still has room to grow. There's absolutely no question about that, and he knows that. I think his confidence in his shot is a little bit higher overall than it was before he got here. But this was as much as his shot making was a problem, his decision making overall, I thought was a bigger issue tonight. He had 6 turnovers.
Yeah,
and with as many assists as me, you, Jimmy, Josue, and Bobby Manning combined, we were all in the. And that's just not.
I played
good.
today.
Just not
I played. I had a few assists today in a different game.
Love to see that
in the pro-am.
In a pro-am, the Manning pro-am.
Were you out there guarding our good friend Pritchard, perhaps?
Yeah.
I'd give it a shot. See how it goes.
Anyway,
but Nesmith will be better though. He's going to be up and down, but I think there are going to be more ups and downs with him this season. Because again, I think he's just from a confidence standpoint is going to be better. And remember, at the point that we made about Pritchard, who has had a lot of double teams thrown his way, Nesmith's role is going to be different as well. There's not going to get as much attention once the games actually matter as he got in summer league. But to your point, I would like to see him respond to that, because when you think about the really good players who are on the rise, they respond in this environment. I remember Terry Rozier's coming out party as a legitimate big money player was because he was busting ass in summer league. He was killing kids, and that's what you were hoping to see with Nesmith, and it just wasn't there at the very end.
And what I will say is, with Nesmith, you can accept imperfections if he excels at the things he's supposed to be best at. Right. So ultimately, yes, defense, an ability to create his own shot and things like that are going to come a little bit later, fine. But he's got to be a knockdown shooter every second he's on the court out there, or else he doesn't serve enough of a purpose. The other stuff you can wait as he kind of grows into his game and polishes other aspects of it. As we keep making the Jalen comparison, what did Jalen do? He started knocking down corner threes with confidence, and he could carve out a role just doing that while he continued to develop and grow other parts of his game. Nesmith does not have enough polish yet to be able to justify extended minutes, particularly if he's going to play this poorly defensively. So at the very least, he's got to be out there drilling threes. And again, his release still looks inconsistent. So many
are bad sometimes.
Some really misaligned shots, misses that you see right out of their hand, like that's way right or that's way left. He airballed one like that. Fine, you can have a 2 for 8 3-point shooting night if you rattle a few in and out and the bounces just didn't go your way. But the misses were hideous, and
yeah, that's true. And which made me more frustrated that he was limiting himself. I mean, what I liked out of him the most from these Vegas games is the fact that he was able to find other ways to score, inside the arc, whether it was pulling up, whether it was attacking the rim, getting to the free throw line. I didn't see any of that tonight. I mean, what was it? 8 out of his 10 shots were all from behind the arc. It was like he just looked like the same uncertain rookie that we saw throughout the course of the regular season.
Well, that's what happens too when you start to go down. You start to press. You want to try to come back in one shot, and we see it in the NBA all the time. Guys just default to the 3-point shot and either chuck their way back in or chuck their way out of this game, and it was definitely the latter. I don't think John said, we saw the old Nesmith tonight. I don't think we've seen enough of Nesmith one way. Like, we don't have an old Nesmith or a new Nesmith. Like, we just know Nesmith as this streaky player. I mean, that's just kind of what he is right now. He's learning. Sherrod says he's got plenty of room to grow. I know after like game 2 or 3, we're all like, Nesmith should be in the starting lineup. I mean, obviously that's jumping the gun a little bit. And to Sherrod's point, once the regular season does start, obviously the focus won't be on Nesmith. He will be able to sort of, of course, maybe sort of, not going to say stand in the corner, but he will probably get away with some more open shots, obviously, with Brown and Tatum out there, and Smart, Schroeder, whoever else is out there. So
if Jalen will pass to him this year, that's still the mystery.
That's what they're going to have to figure out in training.
We didn't see it last year, so we can always.
Well, he has to be introduced to him first.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he knows he's on.
I
the
don't
team.
think they know him. Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't.
Something.
He was like, "Hey, who's this?" He's sitting courtside at Summer League. Who's this Neesmith guy?
Is this guy with you?
He's not bad.
Well, if Udoka has his way, we're going to see more playmaking out of Jalen and Jason. And Neesmith, I think, should be one of the primary benefactors of that because he's in the NBA because of his shot making. That's if you had to boil down his skills to one that got his ass here, that's the one. He's a guy. Yeah, but he has to have guys who are going to get him the ball when he's in position to score. And it'll be interesting to see how Jalen and JB handle that this year.
Yeah, I thought Neesmith.
And also Big Money Marcus.
And we're gonna segue to Marcus because we haven't gotten all of your takes yet on Marcus yet, but Bobby, finish up here on Neesmith.
I was gonna say Neesmith overall was awesome in summer league. In this game, unlike the Pritchard one, was less of an indictment on him for me because, like Sherrod said, he had to be set up. The ball handlers were getting blown up in this game, and what he ultimately was able to do had to come from his own. And this week, I thought he did a decent job compared to what we've seen before of setting himself up in between, scoring a little bit more off the dribble, doing some things.
I loved it. The evolution of Neesmith in terms of seeing him do things we didn't see before was a big step. But again, I just got to see him knock down those shots more consistently.
If Langford had a game like this, I don't think we'd have a problem. We'd be like, all right, he's getting a little aggressive and trying some stuff here.
It just we've seen enough of Neesmith to know when it's off, and this was a kind of an off performance for him for sure. We'll segue to Marcus. Bobby and I did this yesterday.
That's where Langford's at with us right now. He's at the level of bad Neesmith.
Yeah, which is bad. But Bobby and I jumped on. We did a show when this was announced last night, but we didn't get takes from Sherrod, Jimmy, and Josue in terms of the Marcus Smart extension. So, guys, we know the deal. 4-year, $77 million extension. That's it. Marcus is your guy. It looks like they consider him part of the future. What that does for the pursuit of any other free agents is going to be a little bit tricky. It doesn't mean they can't, but you're looking at sign and trade options, you're looking sign and trade options or trades to improve your roster along the way. But this is what we got. So guys, this was reported as something that was in the works a couple weeks ago. So it's not surprising, but now that it's a done deal, what do you think?
I like it. It's transparent. It sends a message. Ime Udoka talked about him being a pillar. Talk about the Celtics putting the money where his mouth is, right?
He had to.
Well, I mean,
no, he did.
Jimmy,
That's
one way to look at it.
Yeah, he did.
You had to show that commitment.
I don't think he had
to. You couldn't have to.
He could have bobbed and waved around that all day long, and nobody would have
gone into the season without letting Marcus know that he's going to be the point guard of not only just now but the future. Otherwise, there would have been problems. Come on, guys. Dennis Schroeder's in here. And I'm not saying that
three expiring point guards.
Hear me out. I'm not buying in on the rumors or whatever, but I mean, if Marcus Smart's going into the season not read up, not sure what the future is with Boston, it just would have been a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. This way, you send the message: you're the point guard of this team. We want you to lead this team. If Bradley Beal or someone's available down the road, if that's something that the Celtics can realistically pull off, maybe that happens. But at the end of the day, the Celtics could put all their chips into that basket.
I've never understood that rationale.
Line everything up for Bradley Beal. They just couldn't. They couldn't. And had this bridge year with someone like Marcus. Marcus was never going to buy into that kind of situation.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that I think that none of us are really giving a lot of talk about and thought to is the difference between Brad and Ime and Brad and Danny was that Danny pretty much did whatever the hell he wanted to in terms of the roster and didn't necessarily do it with what's best for Brad in mind. Remember those first couple of years where he was flipping players left and right. That was not in Brad's best interest. In fact, that made Brad's job exponentially harder. I think that's the difference what we're seeing now. The guys that you're starting to see come into the fold are guys that Udoka wants to coach. And I think Brad is making sure that he's getting the type of players that his new coach wants to coach. And Marcus Smart, Udoka has seen enough of Marcus Smart through the years to know that this guy is a dog. This is a guy that is going to help us compete And right now, we don't have a Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. We don't have the guys in Golden State. We don't have all these, super megawatt superstars. But we got a dog who gives us a chance to compete, and we need to keep him in the fold. We can't have him wondering where does he stand with us. And I think that's a big part of why they ponied up, they showed Marcus Smart. They brought the Brinks truck to Marcus Smart.
I think the main reason why they re-signed or they extended Marcus Smart was because that's like the right thing to do based on the way the NBA salary cap is. It makes the most sense to re-sign your players. It gives them value going out of their final year, and it allows you to match salaries. It gives you a player that maybe there's a team that's interested in a player like Marcus Smart. Depending on where they are at in their where they are at and trying to make the playoffs or whatnot. If they want a player like Marcus Smart who can maybe provide some sort of leadership, if that's what they think he's valuable with, or provide some sort of defense. So you turn a guy who's going to be a free agent into a guy who's got 4 more years on his deal. Well, now the team if you are interested in trading him, now a team on the other end is saying, okay, well, we know we don't have to worry about this guy leaving us immediately. So I think that was the smart thing to do from an NBA standpoint. It doesn't necessarily mean to me that, the Celtics see Marcus Smart on their team for the next 5 years.
Yeah, but Jimmy, I've heard the notion that they're stuck with him now, and this keeps floating around. If that doesn't come to pass, like I think everybody agrees that the trade aspect of it was good. If it doesn't come to pass that he ends up in a deal or that they acquire someone by adding him, I don't know if he's a third pillar type player, but he's a really good player who deserves the salary, I think, and he's going to come to prove that.
I think
deserve doesn't have anything to do with it. This is the problem, and again, this is where the conversation gets muddy for people. Everyone's like, Marcus is worth $20 million. Fine, maybe somewhere else. The question is, does it make sense for the Celtics given the rest of their roster composition and whatever?
But that's not Smart's problem.
It's not his problem. That's not the point. The reason people are questioning the wisdom of the signing is, does it make sense for the Celtics in whatever direction they're going to go? Does it give them maximum flexibility to be able to get better, or does it make them better? Does it do either of those two things? And that's the only question. Too many people are spending money saying this guy got 20, so Marcus deserves it. That's not the issue. The issue is, was it smart for the Celtics to sign him? That's what we're discussing. That's what we.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about what he signed for, that's when you can say, okay, well, what other players are around that money, and say, okay, is this a quote unquote tradable contract? Because remember, a couple years ago, people were talking about what's his name in Indy and how it's an untradeable contract. He's making way too much money for what he's worth. And we talk about Ben Simmons, Oladipo, the big guy, the Turner.
You talking about Miles Turner?
I was talking about Turner. Yeah. People talk about Simmons and how his contract is just outrageous and untradeable. I don't think Marcus Smart's contract is untradeable. So in that sense, I'm not upset about it. But kind of what John's saying is okay, well, we know what Marcus Smart is good at. We know what he's done for this team and what he hasn't been able to do for this team. And now you're kind of bringing the band back together here. Are you doing it because you think they are going to be good enough to, win a championship because that is the goal? Or are you doing it because you want to keep your options open and have tradable contracts and tradable assets and be able to match salaries and all that stuff? So I think it's a little bit of both. By extending him, they aren't getting worse. And theoretically, they would get worse if he just walked. We've seen it happen too many times over the last few years.
Unless you take that money.
That's the real thing you're trying to prevent here.
Unless you take that money and sign it. But we know that they can't strip the entire. We've been over this, I think, to the point where it's they would have to literally get rid of everybody except Tatum and Brown and
It's less that, and it's more, Jimmy. It's not. I agree. I think they did this to hedge, because if they can't sign somebody big next year and they lose another talented player like Smart because they didn't re-sign him, then you're getting worse. Could you have invested that $20 million into something else that makes you better than Marcus Smart makes you? That's the question.
Here's the question.
I don't know that. Yeah.
Here's the question we asked in March. Would you rather have Smart right now for, what's it going to be, 18, 19, or Gordon for 2021? Because that's what we're talking about here. The interchangeability for Smart is a guy like Aaron Gordon. We can dream all we want about him packaging up to a bigger star, but you're basically going to get a player who's about the same as Smart or worse. at that position if you end up moving on from him. Like, that's just how it goes. You don't really package guys up. A guy like Smart, especially, you either get the same thing or worse. So,
Fournier,
I didn't like,
we talked about that too. Yeah.
Fournier got
that's
4
a
and
good point.
78. He
So
basically
that's
got
the
the
interesting
same. He got
one.
the same deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
because
a great way to put it.
Like, John brought this up at the end of the show, Josue, and I did say this during the year. Like, if it comes down to Smart or Fournier, I was leaning Fournier a little bit.
You
and
were,
like,
and I disagree with that because I just think when it comes to checking those boxes, I mean, you line them up compared to other options that the Celtics had. Marcus Smart wins it. He checks those boxes in the sense of, one, he's in his prime. Two, he continues to get better, especially for what he's positioned to do, which is, of course, be the point guard of this team.
So I mean, I'm not sure that's a.
Well, his passing numbers were he.
Well, I want to push back on that narrative a tad.
That role, but he showed a lot of promise there, and especially on the defensive side of things, I think that he's going to turn things up a notch in the sense that he has Richardson.
He needs to get back to being the defender he was before.
His numbers went up.
His defensive background and what he brings to this team, I just think it all makes sense again.
Yeah, so his numbers went up a little bit because of necessity usage.
No, I get that.
But at the end of the day, his 3-point percentage went down. His overall field goal percentage was again under 40, which it is for his career. He is this isn't hyperbole. He is one of the 2 or 3 worst volume shooters in the league. It's a fact. It just is. For a man, he shot almost 6 threes a game. There's nobody with a lower percentage who shot more threes, I don't think, or maybe one other player in the league who shot that many or more with a lower percentage. He's a horrible shooter. Okay, and so that's not
out of necessity though. So that skews those numbers.
It is, and what I said in the show, and what I'll say here is Marcus Smart. I believe Ime has planted seeds along the way of. We're going to put the ball in his hands. He's going to be a point guard. The Marcus Smart contract to me, and again, it is almost you can't write it into the contract. You can't shoot 10 threes, but it really is contingent upon him embracing a totally new role with this team and one that he hasn't had. He's going to have to be better to earn that money. Where he is now is fine, but I don't think he's exceptional, and I don't think he's a $20 million guy. And when as soon as you start talking about Smart, when you have to immediately start talking about intangibles and leadership, that's a way that you're trying to convince yourself that it was worth it. He can earn it if he turns himself into a pass-first distributing point guard who's playing intense defense, every single second that he's out there. But this version of Smart, if he goes out there and sometimes decides he wants to shoot a ton and sometimes decides and he kind of plays it, the way he wants to play it, he's going to be a frustrating player. And then people will start questioning whether it was, a great deal. I think he has to evolve. I think he's got to be better. I think he's got to be a different version of himself.
You got to get better if you're making more money. That's for certain. And
he's
not making that much more money, which is good because then he only has to mildly improve. We talked about this yesterday. The fact that he was capped at 77 was really good because once you got beyond that, it was going to get a little trickier, but that's the most they could actually give him. And I think it ended up working out to a number that was pretty fair for both sides.
Sherrod, you're trying to get in here. Go ahead.
No. I at the end of the day, I think the Celtics are in a position where Marcus is what you need. I mean, Marcus, to me, when you look at him and Fournier, I think you got the distinction is Marcus is the one you love, Fournier is the one you like. If you got to pick one or the other, who are you going to go with? You're going to go with the one you love. And they love what Marcus brings to the table. They like what Fournier brought to the table. I don't think they loved it.
For what they
didn't have the history.
So here's the tricky thing about that. What they need is emphasized by what they've lost here because he's in a bigger role than he should be. If you're just talking, Fournier made more money than Smart for a reason because I think he's just a better overall player, like top to bottom, which stinks because you really need what Fournier brought to the table too. You need both of these guys, which if this came down to tax, if we get back to that thing, come on. To keep both, we don't even have to pick and choose here. We might just be in a situation where we're doing this because of the whole tax thing. The only thing that I thought could have gotten in the way there possibly is the hard cap. If you are bringing
you would have had to move some money for sure.
You would have had to do a lot more complicated things to bring in Beal down the line. Now, let's say they don't get Beal. You suddenly look back on this and say, all right, you would have had a pretty good team if you kept Smart and Fournier, and you didn't do it. So I think you keep both. and figure it out later, because you can always move money around later if a guy wants to come here. And frankly, the only way they're going to get Beal at this point is if he really wants to come here, because this gets rid of the cap space. And what does that say to you, Sherrod? The fact that they did this whole cap space thing all summer, and then they just kind of wiped it out with this move here.
They're not convinced, not even close to being convinced that Beal is going to want to come here. They're not convinced that they're going to get.
And that's where I'm at too.
Yeah, they're not convinced that there's going to be a guy that'll be available that they can just immediately pounce on and bring into the fold. And I think part of that is just, frankly, looking at the track record. When was the last time a guy became available in the season that you knew with near absolute certainty wanted to be a Celtic? You know, the closest thing to that was Gordon Hayward.
I guess.
Really, and to be honest, if Gordon would have made, an all NBA team that last year in Utah, I'm not convinced that he would have came to Boston, because Utah would have offered him a supermax.
The extra $30 million.
Yeah.
Plus Miami was an option too, but yeah.
Exactly. Miami, to the point where he actually visited Miami. So it wasn't just them picking up the phone and hollering at your agent. He actually looked into that as a possibility. So
Robin was pissed. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Like I said, I think this is hedging your bets here. You're hedging your bets a little because you didn't want to be left with nothing. And this is the best player they had in their estimation, and they said they picked. We'll re-sign Marcus. We're not gonna re-sign.
I'm fine with.
All right, go ahead. Sorry, Jim.
No, I was gonna say quickly. I'm fine with them choosing Marcus over Fournier if it really come down with that.
But they didn't have to.
They didn't have to, but somebody obviously.
It sounds like they did. It sounds like they felt they did. Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, they had to. So right, because they must have just known.
They'd made up their minds. We're not going to whatever it takes to sign him. We're not going there. And they didn't even bother.
The other thing I'll disagree with Josue, and I know Bobby feels this way too, is that they felt they needed to sign Marcus, or else he would have pouted his way throughout.
I totally disagree with that too.
I just feel like that's such a little baby thing. Like, these guys are professionals.
Athletes play in contract years all the time.
No,
some of them
every time a player gets free agency,
some of them like
the last year.
Some of them like it.
You know what I think? I think what would have happened was anytime he played a bad game, that would be the narrative that we in the media would run with. We'd say, oh, well, Marcus, he's 3 for 17 because he's pouting about us. Yeah, and that's bullshit. And he knows that's bullshit, and we know that's bullshit.
Yeah.
He plays hard every game. He does not always play smart. He does not always play great. But his effort 99 out of 100 times is going to be at a level that you want from your players.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, if you're the Celtics and you know that your only shot of exceeding expectations this year is to play with great effort, why wouldn't you invest in the one guy that you know night in, night out is going to give you that one character trait?
It's worth the investment.
I would agree with that.
Sure. It's worth the investment, I think. And also, here's another thing, guys. I feel like the old school, okay, save enough cap space and then go get them mentality just doesn't always work. I mean, ask the Miami Heat when they tried to line things up for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, luckily they recovered, but in this situation, I don't know if the Celtics would have if they lined up all their chips and then Bradley Beal just wasn't an option, whether he was staying there or whether he decided to go play somewhere else. And I think this is the smart move for the Celtics to do.
Maybe he might be the wrong team to ask.
Even if it is Bradley Beal, or even if it's another top tier free agent out there, let's face it. Nowadays, if a player wants to go play somewhere, they're going to say it. And I just feel like that's going to be. It's already been the track record across the NBA, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue that way. If Bradley Beal really wants to be here, he's going to say, "Look, I want to go to Boston and play with Jason Tatum next summer. Sign a trade, make it happen." And I think if the Celtics are truly interested in something like that, then they're going to find a way to make it happen. I don't think it's one of those things where, I think you diminish your chances when you're trying to position yourself, financially, when you just don't know how an NBA player is going to think in the year. It's just too things change so quickly in the NBA, throughout a few months, never mind a whole year.
This is so important too, because I remembered that Jake Fisher told me this last week on Dome Theory that super max extension for Beal might be his target right now. And that if everybody's coming to the realization now that Beal is going to stay in Washington, at least to just get that thing down on paper, and then if he has to make a decision after that, that would kind of explain this loyalty that we've all kind of questioned over the last couple of years to Washington. The fact that he can sign for $217 million or whatever it's going to be, and if he has to take that contract elsewhere after that, he can do that. But he would be foregoing massive amounts of money to sign outright in Boston next year. So the Celtics, frankly, and Jimmy actually started off this whole conversation saying this, they had to do this if they want to get to that Beal number eventually, just in terms of contract matching. Sham said there's a trade kicker in here, which helps a lot too. Obviously, it helps Smart. He's going to make a lot more money if he does get traded, and it helps with matching purposes, I believe, as well, if you have a trade kicker in there.
We've been over this a ton. I am very dubious. It goes up a couple million per, or whatever per year or something like that.
But it's either that or you trade Brown, John, and we've been down that road.
I know, but that's not what we're doing. The smart thing, again, I do not believe a team that's dumping a player and going for a rebuild wants 4 years and $22 million per year of character, and leadership. It just isn't worth it if you're trying to reset your table.
Unless they think they can trade him. To another team that does.
Yeah.
I think Marcus is pretty much locked in for at least 2 years, 2 years in his new deal before any team would seriously contemplate trying to make a move to get him, which for Marcus is great. I mean, he wants to be here, obviously, and now he's getting the money that he has wanted. And so, to me, he doesn't have any reason to bitch about anything at this point. I mean, he's got his money. He's got his status. Probably the only thing that Marcus would probably want that he hasn't had yet is to be named a captain, which again, Brad and Danny Ainge, they have their own theories about not needing that. I think you do. I think you do. I think it. I
think it works if Tatum and Brown believe he's their leader. But if each of those guys is like, I'm kind of the leader, like Jaylen Brown. If Jaylen Brown is an all-star, borderline all-NBA level player who also plays with passion, is smart, is a leader in a lot of different ways, and might be thinking like, you think this guy's a better choice for captain than me? Like, I'm Jaylen freaking Brown. Like
Jaylen needs to start getting in people's faces before he gets there.
That's fine. We know that. But if I'm Jaylen or Jason and I'm thinking like you're gonna tell LeBron that friggin' Schroeder is gonna be the captain of the team, like you'd be like, yeah, give me a break, or you're gonna tell Kawhi that Patrick. That year. How about this? You're gonna tell Kawhi Patrick Beverly's the captain? Get the fuck out of here, Beverly.
Wow.
I'm Kawhi freaking Leonard. So those guys have to buy into him as a captain in order for that to work.
And I feel like, a captain thing aside, like that's kind of been my question over the last few years. Is it seems like there's drama with this group, at the end of every season, and I don't know whose fault it is or if there's a lack of leadership, but it does definitely feel like the guys at the top are kind of clashing at times, and I'm not saying that based on anything I know personally, just from watching them play on the court and what we've heard happen, in the locker rooms and such. So I'm interested to see if anything changes with new head coach, or if, all these guys have new deals now, if that changes anything, I don't know. But everyone's so quick to say, oh, like, these guys, Marcus, leadership this, leadership that. It's like, it feels to me like there's been some leadership issues, to be completely honest. So I'm not really so quick to, like, name all these guys captains and leaders. It's like, I haven't even really
That's because there's not one.
When the entire when the number one issue, the number one issue with the team all of last year was inconsistent effort and not showing up for some games. That's a leadership void.
Right.
Marcus was on that team, and you're almost wondering, like, hey, Marcus, why can't you pull these guys out of it?
He was trying hard.
It's like the saying, like, if you have 5 jobs, you have no jobs. It's like if you have 5 captains, you don't have a captain.
Listen, we know what Smart brings. He's been here a lot longer than any of these other guys, and that playoff appearance thing, I know it kind of got rubbed off, but like he plays big roles in these teams, and I think it's the fact that it's defense that you guys are missing here. Like, it's so easy to just wash away defense, and a guy like him does on every night on the defense.
No, I get it. I've been told Marcus Smart is good at defense.
I know, but that stuff's important to being a consistent team.
He's the hot
playoffs year in and year out. Listen, I think it's a lot easier to jump on a guy's field goal percentage and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think we know with Smart every single year you're going to get pretty great defense out of him. And it finally slipped just a little bit last year, but when he was out there, they were by far at their best defensively than
like I said
without him.
My Marcus hopes are he embraces the role of more playmaker, doesn't feel that he has to do too much, gets back to being, a night in, night out, fully healthy. You're right. He did suffer a significant injury last year. Mm-hmm. Comes in, great shape, ready to roll. I'm the guy. I'm playing defense. I'm gonna be friggin', back to my old ways, 100%. But offensively, as I said, his plays a more controlled game, more within himself. No wild swings and turnovers and nights where he's jacking a ton of threes. Embrace the role of you are our point guard. Last year, it was Kemba a little, and then you a little, and then sometimes you were on the bench, and sometimes you were starting. You're the starting point guard. Go. And I want to see what that's like. And it might be, like I said it yesterday, we might see a better version of Smart than we've seen before, because for the first time ever, he actually has a very defined role. The role before was come off the bench and just act crazy for the entire time that you're out there and impact the game in any way possible. Now he's got a job. Your job is run the team. It's a different set of responsibilities where he doesn't have to wear 1,000 hats.
I think he's been overdue for this job, because this is stuff he's really good at: point of attack defense and the playmaking, which I think is outstanding for him. When we get to his downsides, and this is what drives me crazy, because we've talked a lot about Ben Simmons on this show, he does the things everyone wants Ben Simmons to do, and it's proposed as like a bad thing that he's aggressive with his shot and he makes guys guard him and stuff like that. Because I think he has played a way that Simmons would unlock his game a lot more by doing. And I think
it's not, though. That's the thing, is we give Smart a bit of a pass and we kind of brush off the not a great shooter thing. When we're just not acknowledging he's not just not a great shooter, it's really bad, But
is it worse to be bad and not do it at all? Because he could be Andre Roberson and just never do it.
I'm saying we were pretty critical of Josh Richardson coming in here, and his shooting numbers are overall better than Smart's, and we've labeled him as a guy who can't shoot. What good is he? Well, also he will attract some attention and he will take some open shots. He's not a dead-eye knockdown shooter, but we're very quick to point out his deficiencies. Marcus's aren't just deficiencies. This isn't a guy who's shooting 42% from the field and his 3-point percentage dipped down to 33% last year, and he's sub 40% for his field goals, and he's that way for his career. That's really low. I mean, it's really an inefficient offensive player when he tries to score. The guys who have similar shooting type numbers at his volume are not guys we would be praising right now. It is what it is. It's a degree or two too bad to ignore.
It is, but it also draws defense, the way in which he plays. And I think that's how he's kind of crafted himself into a good playmaker here and, prevented himself from becoming Andre Roberson, Ben Simmons, these kind of guys and Rajon Rondo, frankly, where you could just sit in the post, put your arms out like this, and dare a guy to shoot. I don't see many guys daring Smart to shoot. Now, within the system, you may try to bump up his attempts within the flow of a night, but I think the Celtics have been a very good team, specifically
like I said,
in the playoffs.
His career numbers are 37-32. It's really, really bad. It's really bad.
He's been really good in the playoffs.
I just think this team needs something different. I mean,
people are saying he's a better shooter today. No, he had one outlier year, guys. He had one outlier year where he hit about 36% on his threes. But other than that, he is what he is. He's about
I feel like, John, you want another score first point guard in here? I don't know if that's the right thing for Tatum and Brown right now.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that it is not his contract. It's not quite. So you have Rondo who won't shoot. And that would be a problem because defenses would pack in or
Ben Simmons
or a Ben Simmons. But then you have a Marcus who will shoot but does it poorly. And then so it's a question of our criticisms of Marcus were always, okay, it's fine. He doesn't have to be a dead-eye shooter. He should knock down the ones where it swings to him open, and when it's in the flow of the game, and just be very selective with his shots, but not look for it per se. When he gets in trouble is when he starts to trend into the 10, 11, 12, 13. The magic number was the 13 field goal attempts, and every time over that the team's record was awful. And that's really what it comes down to. Yes, if Marcus is taking 2 or 3 3-pointers a game, it's a different story. But if he's taking 6, 7, 8, then it starts to become. Then when you're a volume shooter and you're shooting at that low percentage, it starts to become an issue.
Right, but I just think most of those cases is when there's no Kemba Walker, there's no there wasn't a Fournier. I feel like his numbers, his attempts went down a bit once at least Fournier was there. You had other options.
Yeah,
I think
we'll see what happens with Richardson. But at least that's an excuse for him not to take those shots, right? I mean, Richardson's going to have a lot of open looks, and I do think he'll be successful here. I'm not quite sure if he'll be able to, exceed expectations, but he's someone that I think will give you a much of a boost on both ends, as well as he is on defense. I think he's going to knock down those open shots as well.
Yeah, and Josue said it. Like, when he finally became a point guard a lot more last year because Kemba was out a lot, he did a really good job with it in terms of the assist numbers and setting guys up and everything else. Like, he was pretty good last year. Now, I'd rather see him really dominating defense and doing all this offensive stuff we're talking about, because that's where we did, I think, generally agree, slipped up a little bit last year. But, you have more personnel around you now that contributes to a defensive system. I don't think he has to overcompensate as much as he did in the past. So I think he's in a pretty good position to succeed next year, aside from the spacing. And that's where still losing Fournier really kills me through this whole process.
It's why we're trying to shoehorn Neesmith into the starting lineup for that very reason. But, it may not be the case. Sherrod, anything to close on Marcus here before we wrap it?
No. I mean, I just think that, his contract is certainly in line with what I think. You can't look at the numbers for where they are today. You got to think about how's this going to look 2-3 years down the road. And at that point, the Celtics will, I think, have pretty good value for that. And if they feel that they don't, they can move it, because it will have the ability to get them something in return of substance beyond a damn TPE. I'm tired of the damn TPE.
Oh my God.
TPE, we back.
Could you imagine getting a TPE
We got another one
here for Smart?
Got another
I
one,
can't,
though.
and I don't want to.
Two things we're not talking about on this show tonight: the TPE and Carson Edwards. Okay.
Didn't we joke at the end of last year that we'd be doing it again, and here we are?
No.
We didn't actually think we would be.
No, we're not doing it. In fact, I think we can probably wrap it all up. The Celtics lose their championship. Rough game for Pritchard. Rough game for Neesmith. It's past midnight. It's a school day for Jimmy. It's a homeschool day for Jimmy.
Homeschool day for Jimmy.
Oh yes.
gotta
walk downstairs and get ready for homeschool.
So
all-nighter ahead.
Yeah, homeschool day for Jimmy, so he's got a boogie. So we're gonna wrap it too. But thanks for hanging out. We're not gonna take a break. We'll still do once a week at least, and when there's news. But we have a little bit of a lull here in our schedule. What's the next date? I mean, we do have some.
September 28th, I think, is training camp.
We got about a month to go.
We got about a month, so we'll still hang and we'll be here when there's news.
They did announce Celtics Bucks Christmas Day games, so that'll be fun.
Yes. And I believe the first game of the season against the Knicks, not mistaken.
Yep.
First game.
Celtics Bucks has to be the 12 o'clock game, right? That's gonna be the first game.
It has to be.
The second one. It's the second
Close.
one.
Okay. Second one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not bad.
That's not bad. All right.
2:30. You're gonna have to. I don't know. 2:30 is tough. It's like a lot of people eat around that.
All right, it's August. We're not talking about
A
Christmas.
lot of people eat around that
Yeah.
time. Like that's like early dinner.
I'm not losing sleep over my Christmas plans right now. We're gonna call it a night. So, thanks for hanging out. Really good audience and good interaction and engagement throughout this summer league. Believe it or not, So that was
Forget
cool.
Christmas. We gotta have the Garden Report golf outing soon.
That's gonna
get
happen
some
soon.
highlights and stuff from that.
Hey,
That'll
let's do it.
We'll do a garden report from the golf course, and that's it. So again, Sherrod, Jimmy, Josue, Bobby, follow all of these guys on Twitter and all their good work and all of their podcasts. Sherrod's got A-List coming out, I think, tomorrow. Dome Theory, Causeway Street, and of course, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us, Celtics CLNS. We will see you guys next time something happens.
We'll see you when we see you.